I don't buy the cynical argument that young people are not interested in national issues. I've been teaching graduate and postgraduate media and communication studies classes since 2004, and the one thing I've observed consistently is how concerned students are about what's happening around them, and there's a great desire to engage with these issues, speak about them, be part of change. Of course, youth participation in national conversations and political or community engagement is a multifaceted matter, but I want to focus on what keeps getting raised in my classes. The lack of good media analysis, something that can connect the headlines to young people's everyday lives. Here are some of the questions I keep getting asked. If government debt is too high, what does that mean for me? If fuel prices soar, how would bringing petrol and diesel under the GST regime help me? Why should I be concerned about the new farm laws? These are the connections young people are looking for but not finding. In class after class, students want me to make sense of the headlines. The urge to understand and act is there, but they need someone to unravel the knots. Traditionally, the news media would play this role, but lately it seems to have given up on it. As I grew up in the 80s and 90s, the major issues were poverty, caste, inequality, patriarchy. The media then was mainly print, and a lot of effort was made to explain these issues. As a young person, I felt like I was part of national debates and energized by the awareness that the media offered. The world has changed since then, and the types of media available at the tap of a phone screen boggle the mind. Strangely enough, all these years later, the issues remain the same: poverty, caste, inequality, patriarchy, and many of them have been amplified by the pandemic. The difference now is that the media is not making as much sense of these issues, especially to the youth. This is a tragedy because the youth have a very strong incentive to have a better functioning society and a future. After all, they are the ones that are going to live it. Not only that, young people have a need to belong, to feel that they are part of something greater than themselves. So you only have to be on a campus to see how passionately the youth discuss politics and policy or engage in community improvement through teaching programs or volunteering. This passion finds an outlet in action, so you have young people, especially students, taking the lead when they feel there's something they want to change. Think of the protests against the horrific Nirbhaya gang rape, or the ones at Jawaharlal Nehru University as caste and communal atrocities rose, or after the Citizenship Amendment Act and the National Register of Citizens was sought to be implemented. This is true not just in India. Look at the protests of Tahrir Square in the Middle East, the Black Lives Matter movement in the West, and even as you go further back in time to pro-democracy protests in Tiananmen Square in Beijing. The youth are anything but detached. What they need is information and awareness. If anything, they are providing a blueprint for democratic participation in the 21st century. So they are accessing information differently, and therein lies the opportunity for new media. Tools like podcasts can be a great equalizer because, at least in theory, they offer the same unlimited audience to content creators that they do to established media houses. So my podcast, All Indians Matter, can have a larger audience than that of a news network's. That's not to say it does, but it can. I don't have to worry about distribution challenges, for instance. And there are numerous YouTube channels and podcasts that are, in fact, consumed more than some mainstream media titles. This is where the prospects lie for quality news analysis that truly makes sense of issues that matter. This is why my students and armies of other young people turned to non-traditional platforms when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. From these platforms, they understood exactly what was going on and where help was needed. They organized themselves to help in a variety of ways, from large helpline networks for medicines and locating hospital beds, to mobility for stranded migrant workers to return home, and large feeding operations that involved supply chains, kitchen shifts, distribution, and sanitation. There is a clear cultural shift taking place among the youth towards post-materialist values. That is, they care about much more than money. A better, more compassionate world is important for them. This is why I launched All Indians Matter, first the website and then the podcast. More than 50% of India's population is under the age of 25 and more than 65% is below the age of 35. In 2020, the average age of an Indian was 29 years compared to 37 for China and 48 for Japan. We call this the demographic dividend. All conversation around this demographic dividend centers around economics, how it will power GDP growth, give us a workforce that others will envy, etc. However, there is one aspect we don't generally talk about. What does this demographic dividend mean for a functional democracy and society? Both require deep participation from its citizens, especially the age majority that I mentioned earlier. This is where the traditional media has played a role in the past and where new media has stepped in to fill the vacuum. So, what can young people do to better understand what is going on around them? What can they do to understand the implications of the news? First of all, look for good sources of information and analysis. It is often individuals or small organizations that do the meaningful work, not always the large media networks. The age of independent media is fast approaching and it needs you. Go a step further and be the voice that India needs. Speak up because media platforms are available to you too and they cost nothing. Once you're aware, educate others too. Create social media campaigns to build opinion and understanding. Spread the light. Engage with the media. As a journalist, I can tell you that there is no pressure on media organizations as great as reader or viewer opinion. Write to the editor, be vocal, tag them on social media, do it consistently. Advocate for fresh legislation where required and for its withdrawal too when needed. Put pressure on your elected representatives. Ask the tough questions in public forums and on social media. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Don't just ask for transformation, catalyze it. Change begins with knowledge and awareness. Seek it in the media, but if you can't find it there, don't be disheartened. It's available elsewhere. American writer Andrew Wax said, journalism is what maintains democracy. It is the force for progressive social change. I believe that today it's up to you, the young readers and viewers of journalism, to maintain democracy and be the force of social change. I believe it's you.